There is a new and advanced strain of the swine flu that is infecting this town, and one of the infected is Mrs. P, the wife of Mr. P, who is a wealthy business owner who owns carnivals and various other businesses. In dealing with the possible loss of his wife, Mr. P had become desperate and even a bit crazy. He hires doctors and funds to create a cure, but as the cure is being created, he grows impatient and he starts to develop another split personality as he's not sleeping and he wants to save his wife. He refers to his split personality, or his split personality refers to themselves as the super potato. This personality has come out of his feeling inadequate and unable to do anything to actually help his wife at this time, and he feels very, very ineffective. But he feels as the super potato that he's stronger, that he is smarter, and that he has more control. As the development advances of the cure, and as his split personality becomes more advanced as well, he becomes more evil and controlling the body more than Mr. P himself. However, he needs some people to test out the potion. A family of pigs who has come down with the new version of the swine flu have volunteered to test the latest version of the potion, except for one of the family members, who is little George, who didn't like hospitals. He also was not infected with the flu, and the next morning he had a local fundraiser with the local police department to earn a scouting badge. However, overnight, the family members turned into monsters and started becoming aggressive, trying to attack anyone else who is not corrupted like them. George Piggy ran away to be safe, but the family was being observed in their home by Mr. P, who decided to lock all of the doors and keep them from leaving their home, hoping that they would all soon die off. However, when little George didn't show up to volunteer, Officer Doggy got worried and sent his partner to come and check on the home. When the player arrives at the home to check on George Piggy, the super potato knocks him out and locks him inside of the home with the corrupted family. The officer somehow manages to escape the home, but left the door open in the process, allowing the infected family to run in the streets and infect others. They attack police stations, schools, the streets, galleries, and more. Now that the infection has spread, Mr. P and his alternate personality, the super potato, are enraged with Doggy and his partner for releasing the infected. He tracks them to a campsite just outside of town and plans to make them pay for ruining his plan. He figures he can use them to test his newest version of the potion, so he plants the new potion and a radio near the campsite. When going to use the bathroom at night, Officer Doggy saw the potion and the radio. The radio had someone on the other end saying, "This is Mr. P. Hello, I've finally funded the vaccine against the outbreak. Drink this and you will be immune." So Doggy drank the potion, but it wasn't the working cure. The doggy turned corrupted faster than anyone who had previously taken the potion, indicating that the new formula accelerated the infection. Doggy's partner escapes from the woods and finds the radio, hearing Mr. P on the other side. Mr. P had two friends who worked with him at the carnival, Bunny and Foxy. Bunny was loyal and would do anything for Mr. P. She also had an early onset of the new swine flu, so she also believed in him in finding the cure. Foxy, however, began to see that Mr. P was always acting a little strange. He was not always acting the same way as he used to and was acting a little erratic. Basically, he started to notice that the super potato was another person. So Foxy confronted Mr. P, and in talking to TSP instead, Foxy was locked in a train car and forced to take the potion. Mr. P and the super potato didn't share the same memory banks, so they often had to write each other notes around the carnival yard. While Mr. P was dealing with Doggy and his partner, he sent Bunny to a school to rescue a teacher who was infected with the same virus as Mrs. P so that they could be another test subject for the cure. Although the teacher seemed fine at first, she'd already been infected by one of the corrupted. Before dealing with the player as intended, Mr. P decides to use him to rescue Bunny. Once Bunny is rescued, Mr. P injects him with the new swine flu so that he can be used for testing, and Bunny tests the newest version of the cure. Bunny falls ill, but it looks like the newest version of the potion does not take effect nearly as fast as the last one, and it could even be the right formula if Bunny were to recover and free free of the infection and the swine flu. The player decides to go to find Mr. P to stop him from infecting the world, starting at his carnival. After escaping from the infected Foxy, the player meets Zizzy and Pony. They find their way to the safe place and find George the Piggy at the mall, who is still very scared and impacted by what happened to his family. So much so that he's having nightmares every single night, reliving parts of what he saw. We leave at the safe place and follow a signal to a helicopter taken by Mr. P and his alternate personality, the Super Potato. So the Super Potato and Mr. P at this point have emerged, and they want to set off a nuclear reactor that will destroy the entire town and hopefully all of the infected before this problem spreads to the rest of the world. It's up to our player, though, and the brave little George to stop the Super Potato from destroying the town and spare Mr. P to help and find Bunny to see if Bunny is cured and if there's a small chance that they have found the cure for the infection, and they can do so without losing any more lives. It's a small chance, but it is their only hope. Now after this, what happens? This could be chapter 1 through 12 could just be part 1 of the story. Part 2 could be involved in stopping the infection, turning Mr. P back into his normal self, and perhaps the development of a cure, or stopping TSP, who has gotten away after chapter 12. Now that is the overview of what I think has happened so far, guys. So TSP, I believe, is the Super Potato. Now I know there's some other theories out there. Let's go over some of these theories and try to talk about some of those details. Now, some people are saying that this monster from chapter 1 was not actually Penny. But if we look at these, we look at the outfits, it looks like it's Penny, it's George, it's the mother, it's the father, it's the brother, the sister, it's the mother and father. It's really, I think, a stretch to try to say that these guys were just the cousins of Penny and George. I think these are just early versions of infected versions of them, but I still believe that the one in the pink dress is Penny and the one in the blue is George. Now, the fact that George is infected, that's something we have to talk about, but we're going to go over his dream. I think his dream, guys, it was a dream itself. I don't think that George is infected. Now, there's a possibility that in chapter 12 that we're going to have to fight against an infected George, but I really don't think that's the case. I think that George is still very, very scared about what he saw with his family, the fact that his family tried to attack him. He had to run away. He ran away to the mall, and he relives the fact that he saw that, and he also lives in fear of becoming infected himself. Okay, now I want to talk about the notes and how this theory actually does fit in with the notes. We're going to go over what we saw. It says, it can't find me in here, am I? So this is the first thing. This is from George. Obviously, there's an infection. Some of these early notes don't really provide much help for us. Where do these creatures come from? I didn't see anything like them before, so somebody obviously seeing some infected. The other police officers left without me. I need to get out of here. So I think this one was written by Doggy. Seems to make sense that Doggy wrote that after some of the infected got out because the player released them and they went all around the town. It says, I can only hope that the officer that went to find out where the location of George the Pig is okay. So I'm thinking that's Doggy as well, trying to make sure that the player is okay. The teacher was fine when we got here to rescue her. What happened? So this is probably written by Bunny, who went to rescue the teacher, and that fits in with the story as well. Of course, the search for survivors went bad. I'm now locked in this room with some crazy animal on the loose. So like where this location was, it still doesn't say much, but it does confirm that there is crazy animals that are on the loose and they're infecting other people. Now this one is a note, and when this one actually gets decoded, I believe it says, I feel everything I do, I can't control my actions, I can't help myself, my mind yells for help, but my body does not agree, I wish the world would understand. So this is something that's very like indicative, I think, of the story. The fact that it seems like as the teacher was getting infected, this was probably written by the teacher, but maybe as the teacher was getting infected, it's like their mind was kind of splitting. So maybe split personalities. Maybe one of the first people to try the potions was actually Mr. P, and maybe that's what caused him to start having split personalities, and maybe that was just the very first version of the potion, and maybe that makes them patient zero as a part of that. And the aggressive nature of the Super Potato, that would sort of make sense. Subject has been hallucinating Officer Doggy. Doggy has been missing for weeks, so this indicates that, you know, the the player, after they went to the hospital, when you saw Doggy in there in that little cutscene, that was actually a hallucination. But I think that the player actually passed out because they had been infected with the new swine flu so that they could be used for later testing by Mr. P. So that works in with the story as well. It says Mr. P has graciously donated much to help research the cure. He insists that we test it as soon as possible. So we know for sure from this and several other notes that Mr. P's wife was infected and that he's trying to find a cure for her, and he has also done the funding for the research for the cure. So it says the majority of the family volunteered to help with the testing. The test will begin shortly. Hopefully it goes well. So this is referring to, probably from the hospital, the family, which is Peppa Pig, George Pigs, that whole family, who came in to volunteer to test the potion. Next it says patient 0 was given the substance. Patient has been restoring strength but also displaying signs of aggression. So this would, if patient 0 was actually Mr. P, then that would mean that Mr. P and Mrs. P both had the original flu that they're trying to find a cure for. But this could be it, or it could be one of the family members, or pretty much any of the test subjects. But actually patient 0 has got to be the first test subject. So the question is are the people from the family the first people, or was it Parasy? But either way, it's showing early signs of aggression. That could be talking about the super potato, but they could be talking about themselves too as well. Next part here, she's really sick. I need to help her any way I can. So that's Mr. P, obviously talking about his wife. He needs to help her. Maybe the doctors can make something a cure. I'll give anything. I just need her to feel better. So that is another indication that Mr. P is trying to help his wife. Now we're starting to see some messages from TSP. Now TSP we're talking about is the super potato. It says do not open, monster inside. So that could be a message from TSP who infected Foxy and locked him in the train car to Mr. P to say, hey, you know, there's a monster inside, so don't open this one. Next is, why did my friends leave me here? That was Foxy in there. Like, why did Mr. P, who is my friend, do this to me and leave me in here? It doesn't make any sense. It says Doggy and Foxy got what was coming to them. So TSP, the super potato, was mad at Doggy for sending his partner to check on George, which ended up infecting the whole town, causing that whole thing to happen because he escaped. So that's why he's mad at Doggy, and is mad at Foxy as well for confronting them at the carnival, and that's why they locked Foxy in there and changed them as well. Next thing, to those looking for safety, this is the worst place to look. So TSP writing that either for Mr. P or to try to get people to leave or go away. Just, hey guys, there's a warning, there's people that are infected here. So I think there's a part of like the super potato and Mr. P that they don't want the infection to spread, but they still want to continue to test people to make sure that it's working. And why not test it on people that you have a grudge against? It says news of a cure has been going around, funded by Mr. P, so that's more confirmation that he's funding the cure. We need to start recruiting soon. I'll start with my closest friends. So maybe the super TSP is talking about, who knows, we could talk about Bunny, we can talk about Foxy, maybe was one that took it. Maybe TSP closest friend is Mr. P, Mr. Potato. Maybe TSP is friends with the Piggy family. I'm not sure. This one's a little bit tricky because we don't really know who patient 0 necessarily was. Right here it says we've got what we want at the hospital. We will get what we need, then we leave. So they went to the hospital to get what they need before they left TSP, which is testing, probably also the potions. It's probably writing to Mr. P and saying, hey, we've got to go get those potions. We got to continue testing and continue working on these. It says, poor George, he disappeared when my family acted up. I hope he's safe. So this one here could be written by any of the family members before they actually got infected. Could be from Penny before she got infected. Maybe it started infecting people like the oldest and kind of working its way down to the youngest, and maybe that's why George didn't get infected yet, and maybe that's why he was able to kind of get out and be safe. So moving on, we've got, it says, don't trust the S. Okay, so now this one is a cause of a lot of controversy. A lot of people say if you get underneath it, it says SI. So they're saying it says don't trust the SI, and then they're filling in their imaginations and saying that's the sister pig, and I really don't think that that's true, because like, who writes a note that would be like, fill out just this part, and then a long word on the third line? So it would, if it was the sister pig, it would have to be a much longer thing. So it would have to say don't, and then some additional words here, and then trust, and then some additional words, and then the, and then this. So this could mean the situation, the 6 players. I don't know, maybe it's referring to the players. It could really mean a lot of things. So I take this one as an incomplete message, but it says don't trust the, I don't know, it could be, maybe that wasn't an I, maybe it was a U under there, and it's like the super potato. And it could be written by Mr. P trying to warn people not to trust his other personality. And maybe that's why, you know, TSP and Mr. P could refer to themselves as we, and that it's when TSP says we, he's talking about himself and Mr. P. It says she broke out, but she's somewhere. We need to find her and gather supporters. So I'm thinking this is probably Mr. P and TSP trying to, who realize that the penny has broken out of the house that they locked him into, and they have to go find them, and they have to stop her before she starts infecting others. Obviously, that does not go very well. She starts infecting others, the family starts infecting others, and that's what's going on. This one says, we can take advantage of the situation going on for our own gains, thanks Mr. P, or for our own plans. I'm not sure exactly. Now this is one that's a little bit tricky. I think that really deep down, like TSP also wants to, like their objective is to save Mrs. P as well, so that's their own plans, but they can take advantage of the situation going on. Say all these people like Doggy and Foxy, there's people that are making them mad, so they're like, hey, let's infect these people and let's also use them to test the cures as well. So I think they're trying to use the people that are making them mad in order to help go through with their testing and with the plans. So that's what I think that one means. This one right here says, I'm scared, everyone's acting crazy, I'm gonna go find food and hide. That's obviously from George. This one right here, when decoded, says, I was attacked by one of them and now I'm here wandering just like one of them. So this is probably written by one of the infected before they actually ended up moving on. I looked for her in the forest, she's gone just as Bunny is. So maybe this is also Mr. P trying to find the person who's infected, or maybe Mr. P has ended up losing Mrs. P in this whole process. But right here, some of these start becoming pretty blurry. I don't understand. I've made 7 potions. Why is everyone turning? So obviously they've made many different versions of the potions. Some of them maybe cause split personality. Some of them cause a slower infection rate. Some of them maybe a faster infection rate. So it looks like there's definitely iterations going on, and they are still working on the potion throughout this entire process. Now these ones right here that you can like barely see basically indicate that the soldiers inside the outpost start getting infected, and it's another indication that people can basically get infected from this whole thing without actually consuming a potion. So now some of these other signs, they come from the distorted memory. Now guys, the distorted memory, this is a dream state, okay? Now this is George's dream, so things he's saying, and it also says the name of it is distorted, so some of it could be quite distorted. So I wouldn't really trust too much of anything what's going on there, like the fact that he gets infected at the end and it looks like he turns, because after that he just wakes up and he's okay again, and we know that he's also after this point moved on and he's helping the player try to go get Mr. P, or who I like to call TSP, the super potato. But then there's just basically things here that indicate what he was dealing with after he went to sleep. Some of them were taken over, and now they relive that every time they sleep. So George is living with the memory here and really has an incentive to try to help and deal with eliminating the infection, finding the cure, and getting vengeance on TSP. So that is my theory, guys. I think that is what's going on in the story. What do you guys think? Is there any holes that you think I should address? If you guys have any questions, just let me know. I'd love to go over any of the details or holes and try to solidify this theory if at all. But I think this is a pretty solid theory. I think there's going to be more of the story, and I think TSP stands for the super potato, who is an alternate personality of Mr. P, who when they went into the military area, they also were able to try to put on some sort of armor to try to kind of change their look as well, and maybe they are slightly infected as well, but they've been trying to warn off the infection with mechanical upgrades at the same time, and maybe the mechanical upgrades are part of what's causing the split personality disorder as well. Anyways, guys, if you're new here, would love to have you subscribe and hit that notification bell. When chapter 12 comes out, we'll make sure that we cover that, and we'll probably do live streams and some other theories after that as well. And we know there's going to be some sort of new game mode based on the Twitter from Minitoon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll talk to you guys later.